Again to BryzGarage. Today we're going to be working on this 2007 Dodge Caravan. This is a 3.3 liter V6. What we're experiencing is a whining noise stemming from this power steering pump reservoir right here. This thing, when you turn your wheel, either way, it has a loud whine to it. I will show you a sample of what I'm hearing, and then we'll go from there. Alright, so what typically happens is inside this reservoir, there's a screen in the bottom of there, and after so much time it gets built up, and the power steering fluid starves and can't get into the system. So what we got to do is we're going to remove this power steering pump reservoir, and we're going to clean the screen. We may need a new one, but that's what we're going to try doing first, and we're going to see if it takes away that whining sound after we're done. So before beginning this job, make sure you're wearing your safety gloves and make sure you're wearing your safety glasses. You'd hate to get fluid in your eyes. That probably wouldn't feel too good. Okay, so before we attempt to remove this, we want to pump out all of the old power steering fluid that's in there. I'm going to use this. You can use a turkey baster or the little handheld pumps or whatever. This just is basically similar to that. It just has a reservoir right here, and then you just put this little hose deal down there, pump it up, and suck it all out. So we're gonna suck all the bad fluid out. So I got out as much power steering fluid that I could. So I'll show you what to do next. So the first thing we're going to do is remove these two bolts right here. 1, 2. And these are 8mm. 1, 2. Okay, so now that we have our two 8mm bolts out of our reservoir there, we are now going to take off these two hoses that are connected. They're held on by hose clamps. There's one right there and one in the back, and that will allow us to get closer to a bolt that is located under there that is holding on to this reservoir. So we're just going to take a pair of pliers and we're going to slide our little hose clamp down, both hoses, and take each hose off. Be careful not to break the end of the reservoir, the little nipple on it, and also be careful not to break the hose itself. Okay, so now that I got the hose clamp slid down, I'm just going to spray a little bit of this PB blaster. You can also use WD-40 just right here, just so you can slide off the hose a little easier. So we're just going to spray a little tiny bit there, just like that, and that should be able to slide off a little easier. Okay, I detached the first hose right here, and I ended up putting a bolt in it. That's what I'm going to do for the back one right there. One thing I wanted to mention is be very careful with this airline right here. When I was working on my car not too long ago, I had busted that, and the original one was very brittle. This one has a little bit more flexibility to it, so it's not quite as bad. But yeah, it doesn't take much and you can break it very easy. So one thing I did do is I removed the air lines that were right here. They're right here and here. It will just make it easier to get access to the back of this reservoir as I'm trying to get that nut off the back of this. Okay, so now all that we have left holding this reservoir on is one 10mm bolt, or excuse me, nut that is located in the back of this reservoir. It's under this lip, straight down from this hose. If you can see this other side, right there, if you can see that, there's like a little circle. And that's where, on the other side, that's where the nut is. So it's really hard to gain access to. You need a long socket, and I got an extension on there. I'll show you what that looks like just after I get this this nut off. But I'm just going to hook my ratchet to this and get it off. It's really hard to get access to, so I apologize I can't show you it, but it's right there. So this is what I use to get the nut off. It's just a deep socket. This is a 10mm right there. So, and then with an extension. So I just connected that on, put the ratchet on the end of it, and was able to get it loose. Now this power steering reservoir should just pop right up. I'll show you. Right there is the nut. So that's what it looks like. So now that we have this loose, we're going to dislodge it from this hose here, and we are going to try to clean this. Again, we might need a new one, but we're going to try to clean this first before we invest some money in a new one. It's just a dirty screen 9 times out of 10. So that's what we're going to do. So here's my reservoir. It came off. Now that I got it off though, one thing I'm going to do before I attempt to clean the screen on the reservoir is I'm going to pump out what is in the lines, try to get some of that nasty black power steering fluid out of the car. Just to show you, here's a sample of it. It's very dark. It's supposed to be very bright. This is obviously nasty. So we're going to pump out that. One thing you could do when you get your first line off, you can start your car for just a second, and I mean just not very long. Just start it, crank your wheel, push that power steering fluid out, and use a bottle, let it drain into the bottle, get what you can out. But anyway, we're going to do this. We're going to pump out what we can out of that hose right there. So there we go. We got us some nasty brown power steering fluid out of there. Another thing I did was cap off both lines, so they're capped off so nothing can get into it or seep out of it. The next thing we're going to do is open up our reservoir and clean out the screen. So here's our reservoir. We're going to dump the remaining crap out of it, if there is any. There's a little bit in there. I'll show you the screen in there if I can get some decent lighting here in the sun. It's right there. And it's a little silver screen, and it has a little black tri piece of plastic in there, a little three-way piece of plastic. So now what we're going to do is we're going to clean out that screen the best we can. So one option is to use carburetor cleaner with a little spray hose and get what you can out of it. Another option is to lightly, very lightly use an air hose to spray some of that debris out of it to unplug that screen. So before assembling this and putting it all back together, we want to clean it up really good on the outside. Make sure that it's dry inside of there. So whether you set it out in the sun or use a little bit of compressed air to make sure it's very dry, so all the fluid that's in there is just power steering fluid. That's all you want in there. So next thing we're going to do is clean up this reservoir. So now we will reattach our fluid hoses. We'll start with this back one. We'll do that before we attach those two air lines back, just so we don't break them. So we'll do this because it's on the bottom, and we'll do the other one. It's right there, and then we'll attach our air hoses. Okay, so we now have our fluid lines on, and we have our hose clamp secure. Now all we have left is putting on these air lines up here. Put on that one. And we'll put on this little guy. That's it. So now the next thing that's left is we're going to fill our system back up with power steering fluid. Alright, so here we go. This is ATF4 automatic transmission fluid. This is from O'Reilly. We're going to dump this in. There's a little add line and there's a range, fill range right there. We're going to put this to the add line. So drink up. We're just going to pour it nice and slow. Alright, so we are pretty close to the add line. One thing I wanted to show you, remember how dark the fluid was? Look how clean this is. It's a lot brighter. So that looks a lot better. Okay, so we are just about there. We are going to put the lid back on and start the vehicle and turn the wheel all the way over to the right, all the way over to the left, all the way over to the right, and all the way over to the left again. And we will check what our fluid level is at that time. Sounds a hell of a lot better. So we started it, we went to the right, to the left, to the right, to the left, all the way, and let it run for a little bit, and it sounds a hell of a lot better. So thanks again for watching BryzGarage. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Thanks again. Have a good day. Take care.